hey man, just watch the film. I know how to do my job. And they say, read your contract, right? What we're talking about is effort. We're talking about work ethic. What we're talking about is something that is difficult for leaders to articulate. We're talking about potential. The Cardinals say, I get it. You've been doing great. You've been getting better every year, and you have earned this $230.5 million contract. And yet, we know you can be better.
Put that coffee down.
I'm not here to waste your time, okay? I certainly hope you're not here to waste mine. So I'm gonna keep this short.
Helen, we're both in sales. Let me tell you why I suck as a salesman.
Most valuable commodity I know of is information. Wouldn't you agree?
Coffee's for closers only.
Well, hello there, friend. Welcome back to the Behind Your Back podcast with me, Bradley Hartman. On this show, it's our goal to help you lead better, sell more, faster, at higher margins, have more fun doing it. I'd like to thank our presenting sponsor, Capital One Trade Credit. If you, my friend, are interested in growing top-line revenue while increasing cash flow, that's right, they're not mutually exclusive. Why would they be? While decreasing risk by leveraging a state-of-the-art digital platform that you can take as your own, make it easier for people to buy from you, you would be interested in Capital One Trade Credit. I strongly encourage you to check it out, see if it's a fit for you. Now, if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you may have me refer to, or maybe a guest has referred to, the fact that I played college football. I was a quarterback at Eastern Illinois University in Charleston, Illinois. There's not a whole lot to tell from that experience because I was not very good. I played in one game, I threw one pass, it was incomplete, and I got injured on that play. So not a whole lot to talk about. However, one of the things that did happen was a young, never heard of him quarterback from Wisconsin came down, and it was my responsibility to take a few bucks from the football slush fund and buy him some beers and show him around campus, which I did to the best of my ability. Turns out that guy was Tony Romo. Now, after my second year there, I transferred to the University of Illinois, never to put on a football helmet again, and all my teammates and some of my best friends in the world continued to play with Tony Romo. They said he's a great guy and obviously an incredible athlete. However, what is less well known is the guy who was the quarterback before Romo, who was the incumbent quarterback that I learned from, was a guy named Mike Simpson. Now, Mike Simpson, to this day, holds the all-time passing efficiency rating that he earned in 1994, and that is, for any of you stats nerds, is 225.0. Romo's highest ever was 178.3, and the number one highest passing efficiency rating in Division I is only 207.6. So anyway, Mike Simpson was the quarterback when I got there, and he was a fantastic guy, and I learned a ton from him. What I learned, though, very quickly was that I had zero interest in watching game film. You put me in a room, and you turn off the lights, and you force me to watch a will linebacker drop into the flat 35 consecutive times. I will do one of two things. I might yell and say, Mike, just go on to the next play. Come on, man. Or I would just fall asleep. Many times I would go there and I just fell asleep and Mike would tap me on the shoulder and he's like, hey man, you don't have to be here. You're not that good. You should just go home and sleep if you're tired. So that's what I found out pretty quickly. I did not enjoy watching film. And at that level, if you don't watch film, it's going to be hard to get really good. In high school, I just put on the helmet. I never watched any game film and we went out and we did well. That was it. You cannot do that at the collegiate level. So as we think about going back to school, here's the question that I've been thinking about, right? What are the educational expectations for your team in general? And what are the educational expectations for your stars? And this question came up very publicly recently when Mr. Kyler Murray, quarterback of the Arizona Cardinals, signed a $230.5 million 5-year deal with $160 million guaranteed. That's right. $160 million guaranteed, right? And as it turned out, in his contract, there was a little clause that was related to the educational expectations of its star. It was called the Independent Study Clause. And as was reported in ESPN, the clause required him, Kyler, to study game material for 4 hours a week on his own in order to receive quote unquote credit. Murray couldn't study while he was distracted by the TV, internet, or video games, the addendum said. If Murray failed to meet the criteria, he was at risk of being in quote unquote default of his contract. In other words, Kyler Murray, you're not studying enough? Playing video games? Not enough. You need to do more. Now, if you heard this, you probably thought two different things at the same time. Is number one, they both all look like idiots, right? The Cardinals just paid $160 million to a quarterback, guaranteed, for a guy who apparently plays more video games than he watches game film, right? Also, Kyler Murray, who is a freak of nature and has gotten better every single year, he doesn't look too good either. It's obvious they've had discussions with him about studying more, and yet he's not doing it. Well, after all of this got leaked to the media, and we'll touch on that in a minute, how we think that might have happened, this is what Kyler Murray had to say.
To think that I can accomplish everything that I've accomplished in my career and not be a student of the game and not have that passion and not take this serious is almost, it's disrespectful, and it's almost a joke, you know. It's, to me, it's I'm flattered, you know. I'm honestly flattered that y'all think that at my size I can go out there and not prepare for the game and not not take it serious. It's disrespectful, I feel like, to my peers, to all the great athletes and great players that are in this league.
Now, what Kyler Murray here seems to be saying is, hey man, we've gotten better every single year. The Cardinals, except for a few years in a row when they had Kurt Warner, Hall of Famer, have been garbage. So who are you comparing me against? The answer from leadership is yourself. I'm comparing you to you, Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray saying, hey man, just watch the film. I know how to do my job. And they say, read your contract, right? What we're talking about is effort. We're talking about work ethic. What we're talking about is something that is difficult for leaders to articulate. We're talking about potential. The Cardinals say, I get it. You've been doing great. You've been getting better every year, and you have earned this $230.5 million contract. And yet, we know you can be better. You can be more. You can be so much more, even if you don't believe it. And that's what leaders do. And if you've ever had someone do this to you, as I've had in my life that has changed it, someone says, hey man, I know you think you're doing a lot, and maybe you are. And you may think you're having success, and maybe you are. But I see so much more in you. And I want to help you get there. When someone does that, when a mentor does that, that's how lives change. And all too often I hear the opposite. And I'll hear someone say, yeah, no, he's got 30 years of experience, but it's more like 1 year of experience over and over and over 30 times. He's not really getting that much better. And what they're saying is he or she is complacent. They're just going through the motions. There's no growth. And when we think about the fundamental elements of growth, I always go back to the quote from Charlie Tremendous Jones, who said, you'll be the same person in 5 years as you are today, except for the people you meet and the books you read. The people you meet and the books you read. I would expand that because there's an entire laundry list that I will go over in a minute of ways that you can learn that may or may not be based on a book itself. So here's the question for you to think about. This extra film study, this clause, this independent study clause for Kyler Murray, what is it for you in your business? What is the equivalent of the independent study clause that is or isn't in the contract for Kyler Murray? And how is it relevant for your team? I've been thinking a lot about how leaders communicate to their best players who improve year after year after year, and yet they still believe that they can do more. Because right now, my guess is you've got someone who's just like Kyler Murray, young, a star, helping you grow, and yet you see so much more potential, and you want to help them get there for their sake and for yours. So as a leader, how do you do that? What's expected? How explicit will you be? Is it in writing? Is it part of a contract? And how do you hold them accountable? Well, there's an inverse relationship that is going on right now when it comes to the cost and the accessibility of education. While universities on campuses exponentially increase year after year after year, I don't know what Eastern Illinois is these days, but if it's like $100,000 a year, I'd be like, oh, right, that sounds right. Education's crazy. So that's happening while all other forms of education are dropping exponentially. There are so many different ways that you can learn on your own to improve, many of which you can do while driving, taking advantage of some of your drive time and turning into learning time. So yes, obviously you got books. Books, they can be read, but you can also listen to them. You got Amazon Audible, which will have every book almost known to man that you can listen to. I started using this thing called Cloud Library. It's free. It's through my local library. They don't have all the books, but they have an awful lot. While you pay for Audible, Cloud Library, at least through my library, is free. I'm a big fan of Masterclass that you can pay, I think it's $180 a year or something like that. And you can get as many different courses as you want. You should check out Masterclass. And there's a new competitor on the market that is specifically for professional work training on strategy and branding by a guy named Professor Galloway. It's called Section 4. So check out Section 4. I'm a fan of their work as well. Obviously, you have podcasts. I'm a big fan of the Knowledge Project podcast, and I pay $150 a year. That makes all their transcripts from every single podcast available, included in that $150. So I will often listen to a podcast and then say, wow, that dude was smarter. That woman was incredible. And I will go download and then I will reread that transcript. It's certainly shorter than a book, and it's a way to think about what they're saying and the ideas they're sharing in a different medium. And that is very helpful for me. I'm a very visual learner. You can watch movies. You can watch movies with a purpose. Identify top 10 leadership movies of all time. Do a poll with your company and then go and watch those movies, one a month, and then write up 250 words on the elements of leadership that most resonate with you. Now, I know maybe the movies with a purpose, maybe that's a stretch, but it's never been easier to access more economical forms of education. So back to the real world. How is this relevant? And similar to Kyler Murray, I was talking recently to an executive at a client company, and they have this young all-star performer who has consistently been very immature. And as they were talking, they were almost to the point of wondering, could they even salvage the career at this company of this individual, even though he was something like, I don't know, 27 or 28, still so young. And I pointed out that calling someone immature is an opinion, while youth, the number of years they have on earth, is a fact. So I challenged the leadership to own this more. And they had already done quite a bit, but there are a few different avenues that they hadn't tried. And I challenged them to articulate it in a better way to really share what is necessary for this person to be successful. Because that's what leadership is. Leadership is about achieving results through other people, many of which these individuals who thought they were already as good as they could possibly be. And it wasn't until someone else came along and said, I see so much more. There's more potential. Let me help you get there. Speaking of books, there's a great book that I would recommend. It's called The Fifth Discipline, The Art and Practice of the Learning Organization by a guy named Peter Senge. Now, I want to read from chapter 8 because I think he nails this so explicitly. It may be what you are dealing with your company, but it's certainly what the Cardinals are dealing with Kyler Murray. He writes, organizations learn only through individuals who learn. Individual learning does not guarantee organizational learning, but without it, no organizational learning occurs. He cites the founder and president of Kyocera, Kazuo Inamori, who says, whether it's research or development, company management, or any other aspect of business, the active force is people. And people have a will of their own, a mind of their own, and their own way of thinking. If the employees themselves are not sufficiently motivated to challenge the goals of growth, there will simply be no growth, no gain in productivity. What the Cardinals are talking about, And what we need to be talking about more with our stars and everybody else is this idea of personal mastery. Again, from chapter 8, when personal mastery becomes a discipline, an activity we integrate into our lives, it embodies two underlying movements. The first is continually clarifying what's important to us. We often spend so much time coping with problems along our path that we forget why we are on the path in the first place. The result is that we only have a dim or even inaccurate view of what's really important to us. And in the NFL, it is so public. And you have different players who want different contracts, and there's injuries and there's poor performance, and it's all out there for everyone to watch and everyone like me to second guess and offer my opinion. The reality is, if you want to win consistently in the NFL, you need a learning organization. And if the star, the person running the offense, the quarterback, the face of the franchise, if they're not doing it, the rest of the team isn't going to do it. Now, after all of this blew up, the Cardinals came out and said, after seeing the distraction it created, we removed the addendum from the contract. It was clearly perceived in ways that were never intended. Our confidence in Kyler Murray is as high as it's ever been, and nothing demonstrates our belief in his ability to lead this team more than the commitment reflected in this contract. Yeah, of course they did, because the ends justified the means. They got it out there. Now, they all look like idiots, and this was a giant distraction for them. But do you think for a minute that Kyler Murray is going to play video games on a Saturday evening instead of studying some more? At this point, I doubt it. So as a leader, we can debate the methods with which the Arizona Cardinals made this a priority to really challenge Kyler Murray in a way that they had not been able to do before. Now, the results remain to be seen, but in one perspective, they got exactly what they wanted. They wanted everybody talking about whether or not Kyler Murray was doing enough. Because in life, insights are earned, but the learning is optional. The learning and the improvement and the effort and the work ethic, those, for leaders, unfortunately, are always optional. So as everyone goes back to school here, I encourage you to really think about what are the educational expectations for your team and for your stars. What's expected? How explicit are you going to make it? Are you going to do it in writing? Will it be contractual? And how will you hold people accountable? Because how leaders communicate to their best players, especially, as well as everyone else, what their expectations are to improve year after year after year, because you believe they can do more, these, my friends, are not insignificant questions. And I would argue, as we move towards some economic headwinds, this concept, this idea of how we help our team improve and how we hold them accountable to be getting better year after year after year in the workplace and on their own is critically important. So as always, thank you for listening. I'd like to thank Capital One Trade Credit for being our presenting sponsor. If you are interested in leveraging a state-of-the-art digital platform to upgrade your current website to make it easier for you to sell more to your best customers, check out Capital One Trade Credit. And I would like to ask for one small favor. If you get a chance and you remember and you've gotten value from this episode or other episodes, please leave us a review on Apple. Those mean more to us than you know. We're going to close out like we always do with our leadership mantra. You, my friend, are owed nothing. Deliver value first.